Are the revamped Eagles primed to make another Super Bowl run? I'm gonna start with Q. Do you think they are primed to make another Super Bowl run? The Eagles.
Nah, not at all. They have a great roster, but the roster is not the issue. It's coaching, and still to this day, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni still not even on the same page. Like they don't even talk. Like they're not good. And I understand bringing in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio on paper sounds like that's going to be a great idea. Their last two stops did not go well. Vic Fangio got ran out of Miami, and Kellen Moore literally got cooked, regardless of injury or not. Like that wasn't a good Chargers show, and you could say he didn't have a full cast of weapons to play with, but it still wasn't a great showing. Uh, the Dallas Cowboys, their offense got better without him. Like Dak was an MVP without Kellen Moore. I understand he was having top five offenses in Dallas, but as we could see, without him, they had an even better offense. So how much of that really was Kellen? And Vic Fangio been on the sidelines twice, and it wasn't good. Like he got fired as a head coach. The defense was bad when he got canned. It was really Evero that was really running it at the time in Denver when he got canned. Philly, he was a fake consultant, but even then, people kind of think that's Jonathan Gannon. Again, like I said in Miami, he got ran out of Miami, so I don't really know how much of these upgrades are really upgrades. We're gonna have to see it. They filled their holes at corner, but they're rookies. You got to see how they play. They brought back C.J. Gardner Johnson, but he's coming off an injury. I don't know if he's gonna be C.J. Gardner Johnson from 2 years ago. That's yet to be seen. The D line is pretty banged up. Like they're either old or they're young. They don't produce. Jalen Carter, he had a great rookie year, but he kind of tailed off at the end. N'Kobe Dean, not really all that. Nolan Smith can't really get on the field. Jordan Davis is a name, and he's not really a player. Like he's not that good anymore. They lost Fletcher Cox. I think Brandon Graham. I don't even know if he's playing or not. Doesn't really matter to me. And they got Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff not can't stay on the field for 4 downs because he can't stop the run. Vic Fangio said as much. So I don't really know like why they should be Super Bowl contenders other than them just having names on their jersey. But I mean, I guess they should still win like 12 games and technically be considered a contender.
Max, what's your thoughts on the Eagles' chances at getting back to the Super Bowl like they were 2 years ago?
I definitely say they have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. Just looking at the quality of teams in the NFC. When you look around, you look at the other. I'd say there's a top three, and I say it's with Detroit, and I say it's with San Fran. San Fran's gonna lose Brandon Ayuk in the next day or two, which again does not. I don't think it kills their chances of a Super Bowl at all, but it definitely hurts their team. It definitely hurts their team. But
I
I
would
still
say I would say like losing Brandon, you damn near like unless you think Jawan Jennings and I don't know unless you think what's who they draft this year Ricky
They could down.
Pearsall.
They could make the Super Bowl without Brady. It's not.
I
They're not
agree.
I don't know.
for
Uh,
without him.
yeah, I
I,
struggle to
I think he's that good that it can hurt them.
But I struggle to see a world where Shanahan can't bounce back from that and and create some sort of offense to where it can still work with because you have CMC now. You didn't have CMC a couple years ago. I think you can kind of switch that around to where it's like you
Yeah,
could still
they have other concerns that for me that make me feel like
what
Trent Williams
O
is
line, O line.
36 and holding
Ayuk
out and
ain't the main crux. Like they with Brandon Ayuk on their team and not playing no real snaps, they made it to the Super Bowl without CMC and just relying on Debo and Kittle. Now you got CMC, you could miss out on Brandon Ayuk, but it's the other issues that you alluded to that really matter. The Brandon Ayuk thing, you could kind of say it's a thing, but it's not really a thing.
Regardless, they got beat up with injuries a lot last year too. Hufanga went out, obviously. They dealt with injuries on that defensive side and also on the O line, I believe, too. But I think that if one thing goes wrong, as far as an injury or something with San Fran, that opens up a lane to where Philly can go make it through. I still think that even with the new additions, I think Philly is young and a question mark with the young DBs, with the young line. Jason Kelsey's out. You need to replace that. Like I think there are some things that need to work out in the first couple of games, but I think that if you can kind of get the ball rolling with that, they have the talent to compete with any team in the NFC. So I really do think that they could get back to where they were 2 years ago. Jalen Hurts proved that he can get a team to a Super Bowl. I get their team was on paper maybe much better, but I think that the talent they have with the rookies and with the guys they drafted in the past couple of years, they could get back there for sure. especially if Dallas is a question mark and not competing with them. If they have concerns about who they're going to re-sign or if they have their own set of injuries. The NFC is not this unless it's some shock team comes out, unless Jordan Love balls out or the Bears play crazy or the Rams have a really good season. Like, I really don't think that there's many guys coming at the throne of the NFC champions. So I think that Philly just has to beat a team or two or hope that a team or two can get out, and they have the talent to push them into the Super Bowl. So I know they had a rough loss last year against Tampa Bay. I think that there was a bunch of things wrong with that, and I think they did address them this offseason. I think they figured out ways to try and replace the secondary. It might not be an immediate fix, but I think that over the course of the season, it will start to kind of mold together. So I actually do have confidence. I like Jalen Hurts. I like the Saquon addition because you have a great top 3, top 5 talented running back on your team. DeAndre Swift was great in the role for him, but I don't know if it was him versus the O-line. So I really do think that with a good O-line and Saquon Barkley, you still got threats with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert was injured last year. If he can play a full healthy season with the addition of the defense side, I really do think that they can go toe-to-toe with the other two contenders, in my opinion, in the NFC.
I like a lot of what you said, Max, especially there at the end. Q already know this, so it's not going to be a surprise. I think the Eagles are making the Super Bowl this season. They are my pick out the NFC to make the Super Bowl. I think all the top teams in the NFC have questions. Some more than others, but I think the Eagles as well also have questions. And their questions is probably going to be their defense. Their secondary last year was terrible. Their defense line ran out of gas to end the season. And now they did address some of that. They got young DBs, some young linebackers, some more experienced linebackers as well. But those players will have to get better over the course of the season. So relying on them like late in the playoffs is something that we don't see a lot. Like the Chiefs were able to do it, but everybody's are not the Chiefs. Like everybody don't got Spags as a defensive coordinator and stuff like that. So that's a question mark for them, and they're gonna have to improve throughout the season. But on paper, I think this is a Super Bowl contending team, especially in the NFC. They got Saquon Barkley, who is going to help them alleviate the loss of Jason Kelce, in my opinion, because when you get a better, more dynamic back, it helps you when your offensive line deteriorates a little bit. And I do think they're probably going to still be a top 10-ish, top 13-ish offensive line, especially in the regular season. And they have Jalen Hurts, who not only dealt with a little bit of nagging injuries last year. If he comes back healthy this year, with another weapon in Saquon Barkley, with a better offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, like Kellen Moore still has his questions as an offensive coordinator, but it will be very hard pressed for me to see him be as bad as Brian Johnson was for them, and for Vic Fangio to be as bad as Matt Patricia was for them last season. So those are just, to me, on his face, net upgrades. Like they might not be the best in the business and all like that, but they're net upgrades from what they had when that team was through 11 weeks 10-1. They started to deal with injuries. They just fell off as far as defense. So I think, especially because they're in the NFC, they're not in the AFC. We know it's a weaker conference. They should be able to compete, especially in the regular season. And when it gets down to playoff time, it's like who do you trust more in these situations? We've seen them go through a lot over the last 2 or 3 seasons now. They fizzed out in the playoffs, and what that was at 2021. 2022, they obviously made the Super Bowl. And last year, they lost in the first round. So they had the trials and tribulations. A lot of this core has been together for a long time. So they not only are they one of the more experienced teams, they're one of the most battle-tested teams. And they just have one of the best rosters, I feel like, in the entire NFL and especially in the NFC. So that they are my Super Bowl pick for next season. And I explained that a little bit earlier in the Discord, but I do think I agree with you. Some of the questions, the cornerbacks, they're rookies, but I do think they're very good, especially depending on how they use in his defense. And I trust Vic Fangio. I'm high on him as a defensive coordinator. I've been high on him as a defensive coordinator for a long time. He was a consultant in a year. I believe they went to the Super Bowl last year in Miami. I would say. Obviously they dealt with injuries a lot. They didn't have Jalen Ramsey for a big chunk of the season. Once he came back, the defense improved a little bit. I think in some points he got a lot out of not a lot, but better than what I expected him to get out of older injured defensive backs and linebackers. They did. The Miami defense wasn't good, but they were missing a top 6 cornerback in the league for a lot of that, and they did deal with injuries. So as long as this team is able to stay healthy, which is a big if, because they got older D linemen, they got Bryce Huff. They, is it being a little bit optimistic? Maybe, but I definitely think this team can compete for a title this season. I would say contenders in the NFC would be again 49ers, Lions, and Eagles. Those are the top 3, and then you probably think the Packers in there, maybe the Rams in there. Those are probably like the top 5 teams. Unless I'm missing somebody. In the NFC,
the Packers are 4.
That wasn't in order.
Okay,
that wasn't in order. Yep. Well, yeah. So that's my take on it. I do think if we're going to, especially with the cornerbacks, they're gonna have to get better and better over there as the season goes on. Like you said, Max, it's gonna be growing pains. But I think just the base off the talent that they added this summer, and we've seen in the past where like they've added names, but the names haven't panned out. We've seen that, especially in the draft. Jordan Davis was a name. Nolan Smith was a name. Keely Ringo was a name. But it didn't pan out. But these guys like Bryce Huff, Saquon Barkley, these are guys are already established in the NFL. We've seen them play, and if they're able to stay healthy on the field, then I think they're going to be able to produce for them.
I don't think Bryce Huff is established. I think he's just a pass rush. He's a pass rush specialist. That's it. He can't replacing Hassan Reddick with him is literally a downgrade because Bryce Huff cannot stay on the field for 4 downs. Like we know that 10 sacks is cool when you're coming in every 4 plays. You're always going to be fresh. They need him to be on the field for 4 downs because they don't have nobody else to be on the edge. So I don't that small minded thing.
You don't think he's an established good player in the NFL?
Not for what the Eagles need. No. I don't think replacing a very good player with a worse player, a good thing to do. Like I think that's actually, a negative. But that's small minute. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but then it kind of does.
I mean, it really just matters on the back end. They did bring C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. Darius Slay is still a pretty good corner. They gotta rely on some young people to develop.
Is James Bradbury or no? Am I tweaking?
He's about to get cut.
He's like, garbage. I wouldn't even. I didn't bring him up.
He's like their 4th-string safety.
At least for mentorship of 2 young guys. I think you got a couple guys on there, but
yeah, that's enough about the Eagles though.